The talk today is how to sustainably produce mineral resources such as petroleum from coastal Somalia with capable partners. We know that from the second law of thermodynamics that there is a natural tendency of any isolated system to degenerate into disorderly state. And that reversal of such disorder can only be accomplished by applying energy. Sustainability is a very hard thing to do. If you consider the carbon footprint of countries, there are only two countries who have shown to be carbon negative. Those two countries are Bhutan and Suriname. Both of them have very low number of people in population, less than 1 million each, and their towns are quite small, which means then the length of commute within those small towns is quite short, so therefore they burn very small amount of fuel. Moreover, they have very dense tropical rainforests that take more CO2 or carbon dioxide from the environment than the country as a whole puts into the environment. So in the case of producing petroleum from coastal Somalia or any other country, there needs to be two important steps to minimize the negative impact of such activities. First is to have a good planning sessions before the work starts. And second is to work partners who have all the capability technically. In other words, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. In the planning phase, it's important to understand what can go wrong during the 5 phases of a petroleum project. The first one is exploration, and during the seismic noise pollution of the exploration phase, one needs to be careful about the disruptions sea life can suffer. However, this phase is quite short, and therefore the issues are manageable. The second part is when one drills wells to test the field. During drilling, a company needs to be highly prepared for emergency that may arise and is capable to respond and make sure that large spills and destruction of the environment does not happen. The company also needs to avoid contaminating different zones within the rock they are drilling to. They do not want fresh water, for instance, flowing into a seawater zone or a gas zone or a zone with low pressure stealing more oil from a higher pressure oil zone. One also needs to make sure that different fluids that come up the well follow through different conduits to minimize the mixing as they are produced, and all the component of waste, whether it's the rocks that are cut or the fluids that brought them up, needs to be treated properly before they are disposed back into the seafloor. So the third phase is the development phase, at when the whole field's facilities are built, whether it is equipment that are built at the seafloor or are floating at the top of the sea. It's important to make sure commercial shipping routes are not affected, and also to minimize the impact to the fishing industry. The fourth phase is when producing. During this phase, it's important to make sure spills and leaks are prevented, and as much of the oil and gas in the reservoir is recovered. And the way to do that is maintaining the pressure of the field by reinjecting gas or water. Preventive maintenance system is in place where you repair or replace equipment so that the facilities are always functioning. One also needs to make sure that all fluids flows are isolated. Also, any waste that are produced needs to be treated properly and disposed. In this phase, there is one more important thing, and that's setting a lot of money on the side, billions. And the reason why you want to put this money is because of the fifth phase. You need to abandon the field in a responsible way. What that means is billions are set aside in an escrow account so that that money will be used to properly cement and plug the wells. As you can see on the left-hand side, the producing well where all the conduits are open is cemented and plugged in various steps, as you can see on the right. And all the facilities that we have built at the bottom of the sea, all the lines that came all the way to the surface and etc., they are contaminated with oil. Some of them have radioactive material, and all of those equipments and metals need to be cleaned so that they can be recycled. Many countries have not done the step of saving money during production for the abandonment phase. And there are thousands of wells in those countries leaking to this day and contaminating people, land, sea animals, and the fish. An example is the country of Malaysia. Even when abandoned with certain cementing, wells that were abandoned 50, 60 years ago when the technology was not as developed are now leaking gas. Millions of the wells in the US are actually doing that, and there's a lot of work ongoing to take care of that. So this brings, therefore, to the second step, which is selecting a capable and accountable partner. That is an oil company that has more than 50 years of experience, has skilled people with 30 to 40 years in the industry, had work done internationally, and it is involved in all the phases of the petroleum, from drilling to producing to refining to marketing. You also want that company to have what's called high credit rating, which means they can easily borrow money because banks trust them. So therefore, they have access to a lot of money in the billions, which is required to actually invest in the field before production can take place. Those companies should also have a great cash flow, and also the companies need to show high profitability track record. The types of companies to partner, the first and worst one is small private companies that do not have enough experience, especially those that existed 3-4 years. It is akin to asking a 3-year-old to fly a jumbo jet airplane. Therefore, a small private company fails on all requirements. And more importantly, that company, when push comes to shove, can just cancel its license and say we do not exist and disappear. The second one is large oil companies, but they are from non-democratic nations. Although they might be capable of actually doing the work, one of the problems is if you have disagreement with these companies, you cannot take to courts in their countries because those undemocratic countries do not have independent courts. The third one is government-owned oil and gas companies. These companies are also capable of doing the work. Again, they also fail the test of accountability because the courts in their countries fall under the government, which also owns the companies that you are trying to sue. Therefore, that will not work either. However, the fourth group is the one that most of the countries in the world use. These are major integrated companies that have, some of them, 100 years of experience, and they have worked all over the world. And they are from democratic nations. And what is the point of that? They actually have all the requirements that we have listed on the left-hand side. And these companies are very concerned about their reputation as partners. So they try their best actually to do the best work and make themselves very accountable. And also they are subject to independent courts because they are from democratic nations, and a good devolved democratic nation has courts that cannot be influenced neither by the government or those companies. Thank you.